Hey everybody, it's OCTA Tuesday, and it's raining in a different type of way, not meteorologically blah. Not enough coffee already this morning. Anyway, thank you all for coming. Let's talk about a whole bunch of stuff. Talk about liquidity, the pre-Fed cut run, how markets are on fire, unlocks, credit card debt, retail sales slump, China woes, liquidity up, crypto up, Bitcoin up, and a lot of other adoption stuff. Also a little bit on Tesla and ENPH and finance and macro. Let's go. 45 nuggets in 20 minutes. See if we can do it. Disclaimer, not financial advice. Thank you as well to everybody in the community here. Appreciate you all. And a shout out to Patreon as well. Maybe see if we catch this up. Cryptopractor, like chiropractor. Best thing I've ever done, joining Patreon. So fortunate coming across IA several years ago. Awesome, you've been here for multiple years. So that's really cool. Let's start with the ugly news first. As always, unlocks. Big unlocks for the week. We've got things like Pendle unlocking every week. Cadena is there. Fetch. Ocean. Pixel. Lista. 1 inch is there again. Idaho. Port. Gal. And ENA. ENA and Pendle, I think, are there every single week. Yes. Nonstop. Raining of tokens. We like when it rains kind of money and stuff, but not necessarily tokens. But that was very little ugly news today. Let's get into the bad news. First of all, fear and greed, super laggy, still down low, a little bit like 31, 32, I think. And as usual, it takes a while for this thing to really pop. With the huge move, $2,500 move Bitcoin just had this morning, it's not reflected here, of course. Now let's talk about credit card debt. We are still talking about ugly news. Consumer loans, credit card debt are through the moon, heading to $1.1 trillion. And of course, they are financed between 20 and 30% in the US. This is a real problem for people. And this is reflected also nearly half of the US. And I hope this is not the same in other parts of the world, but I probably think it could be. Nearly half the US is in extreme difficulty in paying bills, particularly down in the dark red states. Places up north somehow seem to have things better in hand. My American geography is not that good, but I think it's like Alabama, Louisiana, the dark red ones. But when you go up north, looks like people are much better fiscally trained. I don't know why that is. The more south you go, the more chaotic your finances are. Interesting pattern. Let's talk about some other stuff. Because of this, people are not buying stuff. Retail sales are in the pooper. August retail sales are up only 0.1% month over month, down 2% from the estimates. And it was 1.1% prior. Sales ex autos plus 0.1%, and it was plus 0.4% prior. People are not buying anything. They don't have any money. That includes Bitcoin. Bitcoin is kind of an institutional game right now. And China, real briefly, I touched on this yesterday on DCA, but Chinese price declines for the 5th straight quarter. Chinese economy is in the pooper. The broad measure of prices contracts. Again, the longest decline in 26 years. But the good news is the money printer is coming. China. The Bank of China, PBOC, People's Bank of China, is going to print into high gear, which will float all boats too, as will the US. Now, time for the good news. First of all, this is a lot of the market move right now is about the Fed decision tomorrow. There is now a 61% chance of a 50 basis point cut. Last Thursday, it was 16%. That is a monstrous move. And when you see this, you know it's going to be 50 basis points with high probability at this stage of the game. In fact, JP Morgan expects 50 basis point cut as well. And Elizabeth Warren is urging the Fed to cut. When even 50 is not enough, maybe give us 75 basis points. Senators send a letter to Powell asking for a 75 basis point cut. Of course, Jerome Powell will ignore these people. That's his job. But it's funny to see that anyway. And shout out to Truflation, mentioned them yesterday too. The Fed's miraculous, unicorn goal was always 2% inflation. Now it's 1.12% measured by Truflation. And these folks know how to measure true inflation in real time. So it's just off the low of 1%. So technically, the Fed have achieved their goal The problem is unemployment's about to go through the roof. And a shout out to anybody out there who's been hurt lately, job loss. I hear it all the time. I see it all the time. I know it's happening. I don't believe the government numbers, but I do believe a lot of anecdotal evidence. So hang tough, everybody. If you do find yourself out of a position, take this time to reset. Take a day or two or a week to focus on exactly what you enjoy doing, your passion, and how it dovetails into the future world of AI, and then position yourself. Very important. So look at it like a silver lining. Now let's look at the crypto market the last 7 days. Ooh, a little bit of red, but only slightly red, mostly green. This is everything divided by Bitcoin. But more importantly, crypto market is melting ice cubes. It's even higher now. Bitcoin right now that's how fast things move. Bitcoin is 61,200. It's $1,000 higher than when I did this less than an hour ago. It's crazy. A lot of things. It's basically green across the board over the last period of time, whatever that is. Things are good. Everything's green. Stocks as well. S&P 500 hit a new all-time high today as well. Follow me on Twitter for some of that stuff too. Let's talk about Bitcoin season. The week before last, we were 18. Last week, 27. Now we're 35. So alts are popping. Let's have a look at the breakdown. The winner is Aave over the last 90 days, up 55.5%. I love that number. 55.5, can't make that up. Sui, number 2, that has had a big pop. Of course, Marty's a big fan of Sui. Tron, number 3, up 25%. And that black hidden one there, because I use dark screen, is Bitcoin, down 12.4% over the last 90 days. But many other things have actually beaten it. Sol down 6% over the last 90 days. Rune down about 5%. So things aren't too bad unless you're looking at the right hand of the chart. You've got Arbitrum, Hedera, Maker, Cosmos, all getting smashed. I always wonder why Cosmos is always doing so bad when they have so much development activity. Who knows? Maybe they're just building the wrong stuff. We'll see. Let's talk about money flow, ladies and gentlemen. Digital asset investment products saw a reversal, big swing. Inflows reached 436 million after a period of 2 weeks of outflows, big bounce back. And if you add basically the last 4 weeks together, we're almost at break even. So it's not that catastrophic. Let's look at the breakdown. Bitcoin was the primary focus, seeing 436 million of inflows after having seen a 10-day run of outflows totaling $1.1 billion. Short Bitcoin flows reversed as well, seeing outflows of 8.5 million. That's good. When the short Bitcoin goes down, that's a bullish sign. When it goes up, that's a bearish sign. Ethereum continued to suffer, continued to bleed, lost another 20 million in outflows, 19 million. And Solana. So it's fourth week of inflows, totaling 3.8 million. Solana, of course, when you compare it to everything else other than Bitcoin, it's just been in. People are buying probably in anticipation of the conference that's coming real soon at the end of this week. Speaking of that conference, Singapore, it's like the stories write themselves. Singapore is ready to launch crypto options trading platform with DBS Bank. And this will enable people to trade options in not just Bitcoin, but many other crypto assets too. Again, this will drive a lot more adoption as well in the whole space. Let's look at the narratives, see what's hot. Piper up there in Canada, thank you for coming. And good morning to everybody in North America. Early today, ETH hit hard, literally down 10.2% over the last month. Not a good narrative. Bitcoin up 2.9% over the last month. And AI is back on top, up 7.4%. These are crypto narratives, by the way, just as a reminder. And everything else kind of all up and down. And you can see DPIN down towards the end, but DPIN was really good over the last 2 months. But of course, everything takes a breather. Every narrative pumps and then it takes a breather and the other ones pump afterwards. Let's look at some on-chain stuff for Bitcoin. And this from Rect Capital. Now, this may not look too exciting, but the new weekly close is in as of 2 days ago. And why this is important to share is if you look at the little red, although red is not necessarily good, it is good because it's a hammer formation. And while Bitcoin produced an upside wick in the latest weekly candle, most importantly, it weekly closed above the channel bottom, which is black. So it looks like we're going to bounce off that channel bottom per Rect Capital. That means Bitcoin is trying to reclaim the channel as support right now and then head back up and break out through that line above, which is 66K. We are exactly $5,000 away from 66K right now. So all in all, we're hanging in there. And every time Bitcoin falls down, the big boys and girls come in and buy. So let's talk about the big boys and girls. Bitcoin ETFs, 3 days in the green, ladies and gentlemen, from Hodl 15 Capital. Last Thursday, 39 million. Last Friday, 263 million. And yesterday, 13 million. Bert Frank, thank you so much for coming. So that's not bad. And another piece that I think is important, we're going to talk a bit about lagging. We saw fear and greed as lagging, but this one also is worth paying attention to. Bitcoin versus gold from Duo. It's nice to see gold break out to an all-time high, but Bitcoin is lagging a lot. Okay, key resistance will be at 64K. By the way, 65K is this channel above. So 64, 65K, watch for that. It used to be 63K resistance. I do believe now we have resistance around 64K. But if you look at what's happening, the ETFs are beginning to pull money in. Bitcoin is lagging gold a lot. Why is it not at an all-time high when gold is, considering they have similar characteristics? And this turns the bias back to very bullish for this particular chart. Now, probably the most important chart I'll show today is this one, M2 versus Bitcoin. You'll see here, Bitcoin is lagging M2 hard from LDN Crypto Club. You can see global M2 at the bottom, and it has been on fire. We'll look at liquidity in a second compared to Bitcoin. But you can see here, Bitcoin has just been in this downward channel. And what this signifies, if history repeats, a mega pump is incoming for Bitcoin. And this will look very obvious in hindsight when you look at the global M2 and Bitcoin has lagged. Just like this one, Bitcoin has lagged. It is overdue for a pump, unless, of course, it's being manipulated with keeping a lid on top. That is also a technical theory too. Thank you, Joe the Hun, Thunder Bear, and Moto89, and Expoage. You're all so amazing. Let's look at global liquidity versus Bitcoin. Another chart showing how money should be raising all boats. But if you look at this, the top orange-blue is the Bitcoin chart. It is down from June. Global liquidity is up hard from June. Again, it's lagging. Something has to give here, ladies and gentlemen. We are way behind, and it simply has to move. Either the market makers for the ETFs are keeping a lid on price, or retail has no money, but we're not sure. But this should not happen. Now, it does take some time for global liquidity to come and trickle down into the pockets to get into the markets. So maybe we're looking at that 60 to 90-day time lag, but this is on the cusp of that already. This is a very, very good setup. You add these three together with this one, Bitcoin has to follow the yellow. M2, it'll look very clear in hindsight. And of course, lagging gold. These three things alone tell me Bitcoin is overdue for a mega pump. Now, here's a little bit of bad news. Well, kind of not really bad news, but Bitcoin exchange depositing addresses is at its lowest level since 2016, and a low value suggests a decrease in the number of investors selling coins on spot exchanges, potentially indicating a reduction in selling pressure, which is good news. But again, the chain isn't being actively used at the same time too. So that's kind of like a little bit of good, bad, double-edged sword stuff. In addition, Bitcoin Mayer Multiple from Axel, let's hope so. We are at a 0.9 right now on the Mayer Multiple. If this drops to 0.7 points, this indicates a hardcore local bottom. That's the green line. We're above that. We probably won't hit it, especially now considering the pop today and the rate cuts incoming. But again, so close to a really strong bottom signal here, ladies and gentlemen. If ever you see the Mayer Multiple at 0.7, you do a Jim Cramer, you buy. Okay, that's just how it works. If history repeats too. Now let's talk about Ethereum and some altcoins as well. Although I do not personally own this asset, this is also a very bullish setup. ETH at around $2,300, $2,290 is exactly at the 200-week moving average support level. The ATR model, it shows you we're at level 3.5 approximately, and we're bouncing with a buy signal. So although 2294, I think, is a 200-week moving average, And historically, whenever it hits it, especially in a bull run, it bounces. And I know Ethereum has been weak as hell, but I wanted to share some good news for those who hold ETH. And a lot of people are considering this is the point at which people capitulate. It's like, oh God, I can't take the pain anymore. I'm going to sell. This is not the time to sell. You would have sold earlier, not at the 200-week moving average. That's why I'm sharing this here. Wait for it to pop, and then maybe allocate into something else if you want to. Not financial advice, of course. And this number keeps going up and up and up. Solana monthly active users hits all-time high. This is from Artemis XYZ. It's now at 75 million monthly active users. Some days there's 5.6 million users there, but when you aggregate them up, it's a lot. Now, when, and I've talked about this for years, when we get a chain that has 100 million monthly active users, that means there's a billion people using crypto across everything. So it's like 10x the monthly. Once we get to 1 billion people, that's escape velocity. That means it's a real thing. And there's so much adoption happening all over the place across all the key narratives, DeFi, stablecoins, etc., etc. Speaking of stablecoins, a ton of swaps, excuse my play on words, a ton of TON swaps incoming. The TON Foundation and Curve Finance are teaming up to launch a TON-based stable swap project. And Curve's tech will make the stablecoin swap smoother with less price impact, a major boost for the ecosystem, and exciting times ahead for TON users. Again, remember, TON used by Telegram, which is like 900 million users. Crazy. And now everybody will be able to stablecoin swap all over the place and move money around almost frictionlessly, which is, again, critical to crypto adoption. And more stuff is happening too, if you thought that was enough. No. Why governments maybe, perhaps, hate stablecoins is that they don't control it. This is from Cointelegraph. Circle's USDC is now available in Brazil and Mexico through their local real-time payment systems. So Brazilian real and Mexican pesos can now be converted into USDC, bypassing the need for US dollars. We are moving, ladies and gentlemen, aggressively into a completely digital world where people all over the planet will be moving money and buying things and sharing money and everything else with stablecoins, bypassing traditional fiat rails. Very exciting time, but also a threatening time if you have things like central bank digital currencies and you want to control your plebeians. This makes it a little more difficult. Anyway, watch this space. Shout out to everybody in Brazil and Mexico too. Let's look at stocks real fast. Stock market over the last month. Again, top performer is Tesla, doing very well. Amazon, Tesla up over nearly 7.5%. Amazon up nearly 6.8%. Microsoft 4.66%. Still weakness in Nvidia, Apple, Google, Meta. But I do expect with the rate cut, a lot of these things will pop. And again, Tesla typically runs counter to the market too. MicroStrategy today has been on the move as well. Following Bitcoin, it was lagging quite a bit, but MicroStrategy now holds 245,000 Bitcoin. They're going to be buying more too, probably another 15, 20,000. And, no, another 10 to 15,000, I think, by my calculation. And now, if you calculate based, as I always say, there'll never be more than 15 million Bitcoin. That means MicroStrategy now owns nearly 1.7% of all Bitcoin. And I know people groan. It's now larger than most ETFs. It's a big bag. It's a big stash. And I know people don't like that heavily concentration, but hey, it's just the nature of the beast. And speaking of Tesla, this is a fun little report here. And sometimes you buy things that are beaten down, but you can see here, it's the Magnificent 7 top performance 2023 versus 2024. NVIDIA at number 1 in 2023. And NVIDIA at number 1 in 2024. And you can see the performance of the ranking of all the other assets. What I do want to point out here is funny, Tesla in 2024 is 420. That would make Elon Musk laugh because that number has special significance, but it's beaten down. It's down 7% year to date. Last year, 2023, it was up 102%. Again, when you're buying these crazy dips we had in early 2023, it was magnificent. So it's important to, when people invest, sometimes they look as though, oh, this stock is down from 3 years ago. Not when you buy it on the dips. You can still make a lot of money. So people have to realize that. And the upside for this thing is like nothing I've ever seen in my life. I'm more excited about Tesla than I was about Solana in 2021. And we know what that did. Now, Tesla so far, you'll hear from the mainstream media, oh, they can't sell cars or anything else. But Tesla is now beating last year in Europe so far, with only a few countries reporting. I think this one covers UK, Norway, Netherlands, Sweden, Denmark, Italy, Spain, Switzerland, Czech Republic, and Iceland. I don't think it has Germany in there. And it's now pulling ahead. It's up 8.8% versus last year. And again, Q4 is also red hot for buying new cars, especially when rates come down too. And as I mentioned very briefly yesterday, I think, X is the number one news source for planet Earth. Again, the reason I mention this is Elon Musk is the number one capital allocator on the planet. Watch what he does. Now, yesterday, ENPH, I mentioned on DCA, it looked primed to pop. And boy, did it pop. In fact, ENPH right now, let's check on the actual price. $118. Yesterday was at 108, so it did have that big move because we know that rate-sensitive stocks like ENPH, they've priced in already the rate cut that's coming. And the rate cut that's coming is going to be juicy, 50 basis points, which will really help this company do better in the future. And CZ, whether it's good news or bad news, it depends on who you are, but he's getting out in 12 days. He'll be released, and then I'm sure that'll pump Binance again. No Binance exposure, no TON exposure, whatever. And shout out as well to the community member. This is sending lots of love to Teju in Portugal. Interesting fact, Teju is the name of the largest Portuguese river. And it's Patreon members Jet One's girlfriend, Sophia, picked out the name of this sweet little guy who just needs some healing power from you all. Thank you, everybody. Hit the like and subscribe if you haven't already. I won't waste your time, but you get a lot of information every minute. That's why I say KPM, knowledge per minute. Thanks all. Enjoy the day. Enjoy the markets. I look forward to seeing what will happen with the rate cuts tomorrow. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good night, everybody. Thank you to the mods in chat. See you later.